The US-Iran war has come knocking on India's door. Will India be forced to pick a side in this war? Since India's inception, we have always believed in not taking a side so as to step up as a mediator during wars. But when a US submarine fires a torpedo and sinks an Iranian ship in the Indian Ocean, not near Iran, not near Israel, but in waters close to Sri Lanka, inside the wider maritime neighborhood where India claims strategic influence. Can we say that India is being forced to pick a side? New Delhi till now has had muted response. No real condemnation or outrage after the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, or for that matter, children in a school being killed by an attack. Meanwhile, Russia and China jump into the diplomatic battlefield. So today, we here at India Today Global argue, when war reaches India's own maritime backyard, why does India remain so quiet? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Let's look at what exactly happened. A US submarine fires a torpedo in the Indian Ocean. The target? Iranian warship IRIS Dana. The vessel had sailed thousands of miles from Iran. It had taken part in India's International Fleet Review 2026 just weeks earlier. Then it headed home, but it never reached home. The torpedo hit the ship without warning. The stern exploded. The vessel sank beneath the water. 80 sailors died. Dozens vanished. Survivors landed in hospitals in Sri Lanka. Iran called the attack an atrocity at sea. The United States called it a victory. But India spoke softly. Why?
Did nobody think that was a suboptimal thing for regional stability or world peace? And I think, we tried very hard to, talk sense into the Iranians to say, this is our red line. And ultimately, we concluded that was not going to work. So, these are unsettled days right now, but, I think the truth is this part of the world has been quite unsettled for quite a long time, and if you look at the roots of a lot of this, they can be traced back to Tehran. So, we will, see how this plays out, but again, I think it is critical to underscore that ultimately the Iranian people have to decide who their leadership is going to be. And, I hope that the United States and India and other countries can work together to, help foster a transition that will allow that critical part of the world, which has many Indians and many people in the United States, to reach a new normal, because it hasn't been normal for a very long time now.
This moment marks the closest the US-Iran war has come to India, not metaphorically, literally. The sinking happened in the Indian Ocean close to Sri Lankan waters. That region sits inside India's strategic maritime vision. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls it the Mahasagar vision, India as a pillar of stability in the Indian Ocean. Yet, a US submarine sank a foreign warship in that very region, a ship that had just sailed from an Indian naval event. The symbolism looks brutal. Warships arrive in India as guests. Days later, one sinks in the same neighborhood. The United States made no secret of the attack. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth spoke openly about it. He said an American submarine sank an Iranian warship that believed it was safe in international waters. A torpedo delivered what he called a quiet death. The Pentagon even released video of this strike. The explosion ripped apart the rear of the vessel and lifted it out of the water. It marked the first time since World War II that a US submarine sank an enemy ship with a torpedo. Washington framed it as a historic military moment. But for India, the moment looked deeply uncomfortable.
In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo, quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders. We're playing for keeps. Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly. Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it. This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
Iran's reaction came immediately. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the attack an atrocity at sea. He reminded the world that the ship had attended an Indian naval exercise. He said the US struck a guest of India in international waters. He warned Washington would bitterly regret the precedent it set. Iran then launched new strikes against American and Israeli bases. The war expanded further. The message from Tehran sounded loud and angry. Yet New Delhi said almost nothing in response. Now the global stage reveals a strange contrast. Russia speaks loudly, China speaks loudly, but India is rather muted. Start with Russia. Moscow condemns the US-Israeli strikes on Iran as unprovoked aggression. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warns the war may trigger nuclear proliferation. He argues the conflict could push Iran toward building a nuclear bomb. He claims Washington attacks only those who lack nuclear weapons. Russia also talks about diplomacy and mediation. But behind the speeches, another reality appears: oil.
Россия всегда была и остается.
Russia has always been and remains a reliable supplier of energy resources for all our partners, including, by the way, European ones. We will continue to work in this way with those partners who themselves are reliable counterparts, for example, in Eastern Europe, Slovakia, and Hungary. We supply them with our energy resources, both oil and gas, and we intend to keep doing so in the future, provided their governments continue the same policy as today, remaining reliable partners for us.
The war pushes global oil prices upward. Iranian export face disruption, Venezuela's exports already stalled, refineries designed for heavy crude search for new supply. Russia suddenly finds opportunity. Analysts say Russian oil will become more attractive to buyers. If prices rise, Moscow earns more revenue. In other words, war becomes profit. Russia condemns the conflict while quietly benefiting from the energy shock. That is geopolitics in its rawest form. Now look at China. Beijing also criticizes the US and Israeli strikes. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi calls for an immediate halt to military operations. He says force cannot solve problems. He warns the conflict risks spiraling out of control. China contacts multiple governments. It speaks to Israel. It speaks to Iran. It speaks to Oman and France. Beijing positions itself as a diplomatic bridge. The message becomes clear. China wants the role of peacemaker. So Russia pushes diplomacy and benefits from oil. China calls for ceasefire and claims the role of mediator. And India?
China will send its special envoy for Middle East issues, Zhai Jun, to the Middle East in the near future to make positive efforts to de-escalate tensions. China believes that war and force cannot fundamentally solve problems. Dialogue and negotiation are the right path. Conflicts and differences should be resolved through diplomacy. China will continue to maintain communication with all relevant parties, including those involved in the conflict, strengthen mediation, and build consensus.
India remains soft. This softness puzzles many observers. Iran holds deep historical ties with India. For decades, India bought large volumes of Iranian oil. Iran also participates in naval exercises hosted by India. The IRIS Dana itself attended one of those events just weeks ago. 40 nations joined that fleet review. Warships from around the world sailed into Indian waters. Among them stood the Iranian frigate that now lies on the seabed. Then comes the torpedo. The optics appear brutal. A ship visits India as a naval guest. It leaves the region. Days later, a US submarine sinks it in nearby waters. Imagine the reverse scenario. Imagine a Chinese submarine firing a torpedo in the Indian Ocean and sinking a foreign vessel that had just visited India. Imagine Beijing announcing proudly that it destroyed an enemy ship near Sri Lanka. What would the world say? What would Washington say? What would the global media say? The reaction would explode. What would India say? Questions would erupt everywhere. Who gave China the right to fire torpedoes in the Indian Ocean? Why did a Chinese submarine operate so close to India's maritime neighborhood? Did India know about the operation? Did India approve? Did India lose control of its backyard? But this time, the submarine carried an American flag, and the world reacted differently. Now the pressure begins to rise inside India itself. Critics ask whether New Delhi lost its spine. Opposition voices accuse the government of betrayal. Social media fills with anger and confusion. People ask whether India has quietly chosen a side in the war. Modi government maintains a careful distance. Officials refuse to comment on the sinking. India denies that American forces used its ports to launch attacks on Iran. Experts also say India bears no responsibility for the incident. The attack happened near Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone. The Iranian ship did not ask India for escort or protection. From a legal standpoint, India stands clear. The real issue lies in perception. War suddenly touches India's maritime neighborhood. A US submarine operates in waters where India and Sri Lanka often conduct patrols. That alone raises strategic concerns. If American submarines strike targets here today, what stops others from doing it tomorrow? Meanwhile, the war itself expands rapidly. United States of America and Israel launched the campaign with strikes across Iran. They targeted missile arsenals and nuclear facilities. They assassinated Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran retaliated with missiles and drones. Strikes hit Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. NATO defenses intercepted a missile near Turkey. The Middle East, that's West Asia, turned into a battlefield overnight. Then the battlefield stretched into the Indian Ocean. Iran promises revenge. Its foreign minister says Washington will regret the attack. Iranian leaders scramble to choose a new supreme leader after Khamenei's death. The conflict shows no sign of ending quickly. US officials admit operations may last weeks or even months. And in the middle of this storm stands India, a giant regional power, a nation that calls itself a pillar of stability in the Indian Ocean, a country that hosts naval exercises with dozens of nations. Yet, when a guest warship sinks near its maritime backyard, India remains soft. Is that strategy or hesitation? Look again at the RIC triangle. That's Russia, India, China. Russia condemns the war loudly and profits from oil. China positions itself as mediator and peacemaker. Some analysts say India walks a diplomatic tightrope. The United States remains an important strategic partner. At the same time, India shares long historical ties with Iran. Taking a strong side risks damaging one relationship or the other. Diplomacy therefore becomes the safest path. But critics ask a harder question. When war reaches your maritime neighborhood, can being diplomatic or muted still work? The sinking of IRIS Dana sends another message as well. Modern naval warfare does not respect borders. Armies fight across front lines on land. Navies fight wherever they find the enemy. A submarine can fire a torpedo thousands of miles from home waters. The ocean becomes a battlefield without clear boundaries. That reality matters for India. The Indian Ocean carries massive global trade routes. Tankers move oil through these waters every day. Cargo ships connect Asia, Africa, and Europe. If warships start sinking each other in these lanes, the entire region faces risk. The torpedo that destroyed the IRIS Dana therefore sends shockwaves far beyond Iran. It shows how quickly conflict spreads across oceans. Another uncomfortable question appears. Did the US inform India before the attack? No clear answers emerge. Indian ministries refuse to comment. The US Embassy in New Delhi also stays silent. If Washington did not inform India, that raises one set of concerns. If Washington did inform India, that raises another. Either way, the episode places India in a difficult diplomatic position. Iran now sees its ship destroyed near India's maritime neighborhood. Russia and China openly condemn the US-Israeli campaign, but India avoids even symbolic criticism. That softness in diplomacy may protect flexibility, but it also creates perception problems. Inside India, critics argue the government appears weak. Outside India, observers wonder whether New Delhi quietly aligns with Washington. The truth may lie somewhere in the middle. India seeks balance. It maintains relations with the US while avoiding confrontation with Iran. It watches Russia and China step into the diplomatic arena. It hopes the storm passes without forcing a public decision. But storms rarely respect softness. The torpedo that sank IRIS Dana did more than destroy a ship. It dragged the US-Iran war into the Indian Ocean. It placed India directly next to the conflict. It forced uncomfortable questions about power, influence, and sovereignty. One small signal finally emerged from New Delhi. Dr. Jaishankar quietly reached out to his Iranian counterpart, Dr. Syed Abbas Araghchi, as the crisis deepened. The Indian External Affairs Minister held a telephonic conversation with his Iranian counterpart and acknowledged the call in a short message on X. The call did not produce dramatic headlines or fiery statements, but it showed that India's quiet diplomacy had already begun behind the scenes. Russia already calculates oil profits, China already talks peace, and India? India stands in the middle of a geopolitical storm that now reaches its doorstep. So the world waits for one answer. Has India chosen quiet diplomacy as strategy, or has the war simply moved faster than New Delhi expected? Thank you for watching Statecraft.